The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I sat back, watching the scene unfold around the dining table. It was Henry's 50th birthday, and the room was alive with laughter and the pleasant melody of clinking silverware. Ethan, our 22-year-old son by adoption, sat directly across from me. His broad shoulders strained against the fabric of his dress shirt, causing me to linger a moment too long. I told myself it was just pride, the kind of pride every mother feels when she sees the boy she once took in at 16, the troubled one, now transformed into a confident young man. But then, his hazel eyes met mine across the flickering candlelight, and an unfamiliar sensation stirred deep within me. At that moment, Henry's sister gently tapped her knife against her glass, drawing everyone's attention. Henry rose from his chair, his thinning hair catching the light of the chandelier as he began to share the same familiar stories he always told at our gatherings, stories about our 2-decade-long marriage. As his voice filled the room, I found my focus slipping away, drawn back to Ethan. His gaze had an intensity that made my heart race, and the slow circles he traced along the rim of his wine glass sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. The cake cutting felt like a haze. Henry leaned in to offer a cursory kiss on my cheek, while Ethan's hand brushed lightly against the small of my back as he reached for the dessert plates. The contact was brief, but the warmth of his touch lingered, searing through the delicate silk of my dress. As the clock struck midnight, the last of the guests filtered out, and Henry retired to bed, leaving me alone in the kitchen with a mountain of dishes and a storm of thoughts swirling in my mind. The clatter of plates drowned out Ethan's approach. And before I could register it, he was standing beside me, his scent dark and spicy, a fragrance Henry would never choose, filling the air. "Allow me to assist," he whispered softly, taking the champagne flute from my grasp. Our hands met briefly, and the awkward silence that followed was more a product of my guilt than anything spoken or done. The house was quiet, but an unspoken fracture had formed between us, one I couldn't ignore. Ethan's breath caught as he moved closer, his presence forming a barrier between me and anyone who might descend the stairs. The tension hung thick in the air, and I found myself stepping back, overwhelmed by the storm of emotions rising within me. Was it admiration, loneliness, or something darker, something I refused to name? I should have distanced myself, reminded myself of my role as his stepmother, the one who had cared for him during his battle with mono at 17. Yet, when his lips brushed against mine, I found myself recalling the way Henry used to kiss me, as though I were the very air he needed to breathe. Justifications came swiftly, the wine lingering on my tongue, a bittersweet companion to the solitude that enveloped me. Henry's fleeting glances, barely brushing against my presence throughout the night, couldn't dull the truth that was building inside me. Beneath it all was a deeper reality, one I could no longer deny. Ethan's kiss was no longer just a brush of affection. It was something far more intense, as my fingers weaved through his hair, and he pushed me against the counter. In the quiet of the upper floor, Henry lay lost in a deep slumber, his snores echoing through the stillness of the house. When we finally parted, Ethan's eyes were wide with longing. He whispered, "We can't," his voice heavy with unspoken desire, as his hand glided down my hips. "No," I replied, breathless, "it's not possible for us to do this." Yet, when his lips met mine once more, I couldn't bring myself to pull away. The grandfather clock chimed softly, marking 2 a.m. as I made my way upstairs. My silk robe clung to my skin, still electric with the touch of Ethan's hands. Henry's snores echoed through the threshold of our bedroom, that unchanging cadence that had once cradled me to sleep for 2 decades. Now, it felt like a pointed rebuke. I slipped into the en-suite bathroom, locking the door behind me, and summoned the courage to face the mirror. My lips were puffy, my hair tangled, and my eyes sparkled with a guilty gleam I hadn't seen since my college days. The reflection staring back at me was a stranger, someone I couldn't recognize. 3 showers later, the memory of Ethan's touch still clung to me. His hands had roamed my body with a desire that left me weak at the knees. No matter how much I tried to wash it away, I couldn't forget the way he had whispered, "You're so much more beautiful than him," against my throat, just before we reluctantly parted. I reassured myself that it was nothing more than a fleeting lapse, something ignited by the champagne and the weight of solitude. But as my phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number at dawn, my heart soared before reason could intervene. We had become masters of seizing fleeting moments, fingers brushing briefly as we exchanged the salt shaker at the breakfast table, lingering eye contact at dinner as Henry spoke, creating a tension neither of us could ignore. Ethan would deliberately leave his towel in my laundry basket, knowing I would fold it and press it to my face, inhaling his scent. Each encounter shimmered with a dangerous energy, the exhilaration of evading detection only fueling our obsession. Henry remained blissfully unaware, commending Ethan for his newfound maturity, not realizing that the confidence emanating from his son was the result of a secret pact with his wife. "You two seem closer lately," Henry remarked one evening, absent-mindedly patting my knee before returning to his newspaper. The words sent a chill through me, and it was in Ethan's childhood bedroom, the very room where I had once comforted him after his nightmares, that we first crossed an unspoken line. At 22, he pressed me against those superhero posters, his kiss insistent and urgent. "He'll be home in an hour," I whispered, feeling his teeth graze my collarbone. "We should hurry," he urged, his fingers deftly unbuttoning my blouse. As I smoothed my blouse afterward, my fingers trembling, Ethan's grip on my wrist tightened. "This isn't just about sex," he said, his gaze dark with hunger. "You're the only one who ever really listens to me." That evening, Henry reached for my hand in bed, a gesture that had been absent for months. As I followed through with my duties, my mind kept returning to Ethan's touch, the way he had made me feel alive again, after years of emotional neglect. As Henry turned away, a wave of emotion surged within me, leaving me with unshed tears. His satisfaction was in stark contrast to the turmoil I felt. My lies accumulated, like a heap of soiled garments I could no longer ignore. I began canceling lunches with friends, fearing they might see the guilt etched into my face. I started wearing turtlenecks to cover the marks left by Ethan's affection. One morning, as I gazed at Henry over breakfast, I wondered if the dissolution of our marriage would hurt him less than the truth we were living. Then came the message that would change everything. It wasn't from Ethan, it was from my daughter, Sophie, at college. "I'm coming home this weekend. We need to talk about what's going on between you and Ethan." The phone slipped from my hand, shattering against the tile. This time, there would be no gathering of pieces. Sophie's arrival sent me into a frenzy. I moved quickly through the house, gathering Ethan's discarded hoodies, wiping away our fingerprints from wine glasses, and spraying the air with my vanilla perfume to mask his scent. By the time Sophie stepped through the door, I was sitting rigidly on the sofa, hands tightly clasped in my lap. A magazine lay open on the table. A page I hadn't even absorbed. "Mother," she said, her voice calm but filled with suspicion. At 20, Sophie had inherited Henry's sharp analytical gaze, the one that made defendants squirm in his courtroom. Now, it felt like that gaze was pinning me down. She made herself coffee, but neither of us touched it. The silence grew heavy, sharp as a blade. "It's Ethan, right?" she said, her voice trembling. "I can see it, the way your gaze lingers on him, how you both disappear after dinner." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words failed me. Sophie's face crumpled, and for the first time, I realized how deeply the lie had taken root in my own heart. Later that night, in the stillness of the garage, Ethan looked at me with a mixture of sadness and confusion. "It's not about desire," he said quietly. "It's the loneliness. This house doesn't feel like home anymore." "Just load the car," I replied, the words heavy with finality. "Sophie will understand." But his grip on me tightened. "What does it matter? She isn't my biological sister. Henry isn't my real father." His words, casual and cold, left a knot in my stomach. For the first time, I saw the boy beneath the man, the boy clinging to me as if I were his only lifeline in the storm we had created together. Henry then turned and departed in silence. The front door banged shut, the tires let out a piercing screech. In an instant 2 decades of marriage unraveled with the mere whisper of Ethan's voice. At long last the digital clock illuminated the early Hour of 3:47 a.m. While I remained motionless in bed attuned to the rhythm of Henry's irregular breathing since the moment he entered silence had enveloped him, she simply turned and walked away, leaving behind a quiet devastation that lingered in my mind far more than any loud confrontation ever could. The persistent buzz of my phone echoed for the 14th time. Ethan, send a message from his room at the end of the hallway, won't be returning this evening. Approach me. The message seared into my palm. An intoxicating blend of allure and accusation. Dawn slipped softly through the blinds, coaxing me to finally stir from my slumber. By the door, Henry's forsaken briefcase rested, its contents spilled and scattered in disarray, documents scattered across the ground reminiscent of the fragments of our broken existence. The sight of my reflection in the hallway mirror took me by surprise. Shadows linger beneath weary bloodshot eyes, lips remain tender, a lingering reminder of Ethan's kisses. The figure reflected in the glass was an unfamiliar visage. Before I could step through, Sophie's door swung open. She surveyed my unkempt state, her expression tightening with resolve. I told him, she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, once you had settled into your slumber, I reached out to Dad at his office and shared all that had transpired. Her subsequent words struck with the force of bullet. She is initiating divorce proceedings, and I shall never converse with you again. The house phone pierced the stillness, its shrill tone cutting through the charged silence. Ethan's voice echoed from downstairs, tinged with a note of alarm. As he entered the kitchen, I found him looking pale, the receiver hanging loosely from his fingers. He remarked that it was the hospital. Father Henry found himself entangled in an unfortunate accident. The manner in which he continued to address him as Dad drove the blade further in. There are suspicions that he may have been under the influence of alcohol. His vehicle collided with a guardrail along the interstate. The air in the emergency room was thick with the scent of antiseptic, mingling with the bitter aroma of subpar coffee. Henry lay in a state of unconsciousness, surrounded by the sterile glow of ICU monitors. His forehead was stitched, his right arm encased in a cast. The young resident paused, uncertainty flickering in their eyes before they finally found the words to speak. Your husband's blood alcohol concentration exceeded the legal threshold. Significantly, the officers reported discovering an empty bourbon bottle nestled in the passenger seat. Ethan collapsed into a plastic chair, his head cradled in his hands. I extended my hand toward him, driven by an instinctual urge, yet he recoiled. In response, this is our fault, he muttered, his voice barely rising above a whisper, more to himself than to me. The revelation washed over him in a sudden, overwhelming wave. What we had accomplished, whom we had wounded. At last, he raised his gaze, his eyes reflected a burdening dread. Oh dear, he embodied the essence of a father in every significant aspect. The television in the waiting room flickered to life, broadcasting a morning news segment detailing the unfortunate incident involving a well-known judge and a drunk driving accident. My stomach sank as Henry's polished headshot appeared on screen, juxtaposed with images of our ravaged colonial. The scrolling text at the bottom revealed that sources suggest marital difficulties might have played a role in the incident. Ethan's phone vibrated, signaling the arrival of a message. His countenance grew somber as he revealed the screen to me. A gossip blog had swiftly seized upon the narrative, featuring veiled remarks regarding a troubled bond with his stepmother. The comments section lay in ruins, a desolate landscape where our reputations had met their untimely end. As the clock struck noon, the first reporter made the call to the hospital. By 2 o'clock, photographers had gathered in the parking lot, their equipment ready and anticipation palpable. At 3, Henry stirred just enough to catch a glimpse of me by his bedside before he turned his face to the wall. The nurse gently recommended that I take my leave. The house seemed vast and empty in the absence of Henry's familiar presence. Ethan strode restlessly around the kitchen, his fingers raking through his hair until it spiked wildly in every direction. Must take the initiative, he declared, abruptly seizing his keys. I will engage in a conversation with Sophie, guiding her to comprehend the situation. What is there to understand? I captured the moment when the dam finally gave way. What have we sacrificed our family for? A darkly woven tale of imagination. The words lingered in the air, harsh and inescapable. Ethan's expression grew steely. It appeared you found no fault in it when you were whispering my name in the dark last night. The harshness in his voice took me by surprise. This was not the fragile child from the hospital. This was a completely different person. The chime of the doorbell echoed through the quiet space beyond the frosted glass. 2 uniformed officers came into view. Me blood froze in my veins. Ethan responded as I lingered in the hallway, absorbing snippets of the dialogue. Order of protection, maintain a distance of 500 feet. The request from Judge Monrias. The door clicked shut, a tremor coursed through Ethan's hands. He is prohibiting my entry into the house from you. The silent suggestion lingered in the air, weighty and palpable. Henry understood precisely how to deliver retribution to us both, devoid of any legal bonds. Ethan found himself with no rightful claim to this family. While he meticulously folded his clothes into the duffel bag, my gaze was drawn to the framed photo resting on his dresser. All 4 of us gathered at his college graduation, Henry's arm confidently draped around his shoulders. Ethan noticed my gaze and purposefully flipped it over, concealing its face. Perhaps "This is for the best," remarked, zipping the bag with a sense of finality. Neither a farewell kiss nor a vow to reach out lingered in the air, only the faint reverberation of the front door shutting lingered, accompanied by the profound realization that I had lost them all, my beloved husband, my cherished daughter, and now the boy I had naively believed cared for me. Stillness was overwhelming. A news van came to a halt at the curb outside. Within the confines of the refrigerator, the remnants of Henry's birthday cake lingered, a sweet echo of celebration past the festivity that ignited everything. I collapsed onto the floor, the burden of my decisions bearing down on me, suffocating my breath. A phone rang faintly in the distance, most likely just another journalist, perhaps the divorce attorney or the hospital, bearing grim tidings regarding Henry's condition. I chose not to respond. Silence enveloped the moment, leaving no words to be spoken. The restraining order came on pristine legal parchment. The ink of Henry's signature loomed before me, a silent accusation that demanded attention. 2 unadorned pages that concluded 2 decades of marriage with a stark precision. I ran my fingers over the embossed letterhead, feeling its texture with a sense of detachment. Irreconcilable differences. Those words echo with a weight that speaks of profound divides, making little effort to convey the extent to which I had shattered our existence. The voice of my lawyer hummed in my ear, matters concerning the division of assets and the provision of spousal support. Yet all that resonated in my ears was Sophie's broken voice declaring, "I never want to see you again." The house felt eerily silent in the absence of Henry's nightly news ritual and the pulsating beats of Ethan's music reverberating through the walls. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to carry an air of accusation. I meandered into Ethan's forsaken bedroom, the sheets still entwined from our previous rendezvous. The scent of his cologne hung in the atmosphere, a subtle reminder of his presence, yet his drawer remained only partially filled. The framed family photo on his desk now stood as a mere dusty outline of its former presence. The final message lingered, a silent beacon on my phone. For 3 long days before I mustered the resolve to erase it, Henry's visage reflected from each newsstand, a haunting presence that demanded attention. The scandal had erupted with fervor. Tabloids screamed about the prominent judge's wife involved in a scandalous affair with her stepson. Me yearbook photo stands in stark contrast to the hospital images capturing Henry's recovery. Last week, the cashier at the grocery store acknowledged my presence. Her courteous smile turned to ice upon seeing my name on the credit card. I abandoned my overflowing cart in the aisle, never to return. The divorce proceedings unfolded with a ruthless precision. Henry's attorney unveiled evidence that had eluded my awareness. Security camera footage from our home system capturing Ethan and me in the kitchen. My credit card statements for hotel rooms I had insisted were merely spa days, and even the testimony of our housekeeper regarding the freshly changed sheets in Ethan's room. Sitting across the courtroom from Henry, I beheld the man I had cherished for 2 decades, now regarding me with the same cold detachment he reserved for those he deemed guilty. Sophie turned a deaf ear to my attempts to reach her when I arrived unannounced last month. Her dorm roommate informed me that she had transferred to a different school. The expression on that young girl's face, a blend of pity and disgust, lingered in my dreams far more than any confrontation ever could. At that moment the email from Ethan arrived, not the heartfelt appeals I had anticipated, but rather a stark formal notification indicating that he had engaged legal representation to pursue a lawsuit for emotional distress and breaches of personal boundaries. The letter from his lawyer asserted that I had exploited his precarious situation within the family. The dates mentioned encompassed instances I recalled in a different light, moments when he reached out, presents he offered, messages he dispatched in the stillness of night. The betrayal pierced more profoundly than any legal separation could ever convey. The ultimate indignity arrived when Henry chose to sell our narrative to a true crime podcast. I stood there utterly speechless as he recounted the moment he returned home to discover my wife and the boy I had nurtured as my own entangled in unimaginable acts. The host's gasp of horror echoed the response I should have felt months prior as the 911 call from Henry's accident echoed through the speakers, his slurred voice pleading with the operator to allow him to die instead of enduring this humiliation. I found myself compelled to pull over, overwhelmed by the urge to vomit. I sought out Ethan. The apartment stood vacant, devoid of life. The call abruptly ended. His Instagram showcased idyllic tropical beaches and vibrant cocktails, with captions exulting in the newfound sense of freedom. In a single photograph, his arm was casually draped around a blonde girl who appeared to be no older than Sophie. The date marked it as 2 days following Henry's accident. Last week, the house found its new owner, the new proprietors, a youthful couple accompanied by their infant, inquired whether the stained glass window in the foyer was indeed an original piece. I kept it to myself that Henry had installed it for our 10th anniversary. While packing the final box, I stumbled upon Ethan's high school graduation program hidden away behind my desk. His youthful scrawl danced in the margins. Thank you for being the most incredible mother one could ever ask for. I set it ablaze in the kitchen sink. Here I find myself in this temporary dwelling encircled by boxes that remain only partially unpacked, gazing at the business Card of the therapist. My lawyer suggested the initial appointment is scheduled for tomorrow. I assure myself that I will go. I seek to comprehend the journey that led me to become this individual, yet a part of me ponders whether certain stains remain. Forever unyielding to the cleansing touch. The phone emits a sharp trill. It's likely yet another journalist or perhaps Henry's attorney arriving with additional documents. I remain silent. I find myself without anyone I wish to converse with. The scent of lavender mingled with an air of regret. In the therapist's office, Dr. Whitman sat opposite me, her notepad remaining idle, her gaze fixed on mine as I divulged the entire tangled narrative. It was in the kitchen that Ethan's hand first grazed mine, a fleeting touch that sent my breath catching in my throat. In the wild abandon of Henry's birthday celebration fueled by champagne lingered in the air. Upon completion my hands trembled and my throat felt raw, as though I had been shouting. Dr. Whitman inclined his body, drawing closer. Did you believe you loved Heimer? Was it the way he made you feel that captured your heart? The inquiry lingered in the atmosphere, ephemeral and elusive, much like wisps of smoke. No answer came to me in the depths of night. Henry graced my dreams, not the shattered figure from the hospital, but the image of him on our wedding day. His smile was broad, his hand remained unwavering as he gently placed the ring upon my finger. As I stirred from slumber, I found my pillow soaked, the vacant side of the bed chillingly frigid. Next came the email. It came from Sophie, only 3 lines. Father is preparing to embark on a new journey of love. An associate from his firm. She is expecting a child. I felt it was important for you to hear it directly from Meth. Words became indistinct. Infant, a newlywed spouse, existence obliterated. I made my way to Henry's new abode, a contemporary structure featuring a wraparound porch so different from our traditional colonial home. I refrained from knocking. I found myself seated in my car, observing through the glass as he shared laughter with a blonde woman. His hand lay gently upon her rounded belly. Sophie was present as well, arranging the table with care. Her smile was effortless, reminiscent of a time long past. They appeared to be filled with joy. They appeared to be a family. In the end, Ethan discovered my whereabouts regardless, arrived at my apartment without any prior notice. His tan grew richer, his hair took on a sun-kissed huea, gold chain shimmering at his throat. Did you find yourself thinking of me? He inquired, a smirk playing on his lips as though the events of the past year had simply evaporated into thin air. I gazed at him, truly observing him for the first time since everything shattered. The youthful allure had transformed into a meticulously crafted facade. The fragility I had succumbed to had vanished, supplanted by a chilling assurance that sent shivers across my skin. I declared that you had taken advantage of me. He let out a hearty laugh. Yet I was not utilized by you. There was a sense of oneness that enveloped you. Isolated, I merely occupied the space of a nearby warm presence. He moved in closer, his voice lowering to a whisper. Yet we harmonize beautifully indeed. We are. For a fleeting moment I hesitated, the recollection of his hands upon my skin, the way he ignited a spark within me after years of neglect, still coursed a treacherous warmth through my veins. Then I pondered the arrival of Henry's new baby, concerning Sophie, as revulsion of the existence I had reduced to cinders. I took a step back. Leave now. Ethan's smirk vanished. Your perspective will shift yet. I refrained. As dawn broke I secured a one-way ticket to a seaside town, a place where my identity remained a mystery to all. I traveled with minimal belongings, only garments, a handful of childhood photographs of Sophie, and the wedding ring I had tucked away in my jewelry box. The therapist once inquired whether I felt any regret about it. The undeniable truth, there were days when the absence of Ethan weighed heavily on my heart, a deep persistent ache that lingered. Oh no, their days my feelings towards him were filled with disdain, yet with each passing day me self-loathing deepened. A taxi's horn blared from outside as I cast a final glance around the vacant apartment. A sense of finality washed over me. I then closed the door behind me. Not all tales conclude with joy, some simply conclude